Topic is going to be about bank rec, but before we get into that, I want to thank all of you for joining us today. And those of you that this is your first time, welcome. We are in listen-only mode. If you have any questions, please type them out in the question box. I will do my best to monitor that box on my other monitor over here and get the answers to you. If I fail to get the answers to you, I will call you afterwards, or feel free to give us a call and ask us any questions that we did not clarify during the webinar here today. The first question that most people ask is, do I own bank rec? You know, we're going to get in the Wayback Machine real quick. And, you know, back in the day when some of us purchased our software, we could choose specific modules that we wanted to purchase, and a lot of times, you know, we didn't buy the bank rec module. So if you look on your modules listing on the left-hand side of your screen, if you do not see the bank rec module listed, you don't own it, okay? So that's not a bad thing. We can always add it, and this will be a good introduction if you don't have it. Is this going to be a good product for you to use in the future for your bank recs? Now, I always tell people bank rec is probably one of the easiest, hardest modules you'll have. It's great when everything balances, but when it doesn't, boy, we scratch our head and pull our hair out occasionally when it doesn't balance, trying to figure out what went wrong and how to fix it. But there is always a way to find it, and you always end up finding it, so no problem there. Once you understand how it's fed, how the data gets to it, I think it's a little easier to know, when we're having some issues, what went wrong. But let's start with what actually feeds the bank rec module. Well, for one, the general ledger does. But I want you to keep this in mind. When I say the general ledger, you can do entries in your general ledger, right? We can do general journal entries, we can do recurring entries, and we can do transaction journal entries. Well, the only journal entry that actually feeds the bank rec module is the transaction journal entry. So if you do a general journal entry, it will not, repeat, not post over to the bank rec module. Only transaction journal entries do. And we'll be doing one today, so I can show you how to do that. Accounts receivable feeds the bank rec module with our cash receipt entries. Accounts payable, obviously, with our checks, manual check and regular check. Payroll feeds the bank rec module, and the purchase order module actually can feed the bank rec module also. Now, keep in mind, you can do entries in the bank rec module that will also affect the balance that we're showing in there. So I want you to keep that in mind while we're going through this process today. Now, the first thing that happens, usually when you guys call me, the very first thing I do is I start checking balances. And so one of the things that you should do with your bank rec is I check my account balances. So let's go ahead and take a look at our cash account here. I'm going to pull up my cash account, and I am in stage 2015. So you are now going to see me in the year 2020. Remember, before I was running in old history years, but now I'm in 2020, so I'm in the future. And when I check your balances, what I'm doing is I'm checking your ending balance here, not the balance that you're trying to reconcile. We're going to reconcile May today because the bank rec is actually a running balance. So let's go into the bank reconciliation module, and I am going to pull up bank code maintenance. And I am going to reconcile bank code H. So here's my balance for my bank code H. And let's go and let's open account inquiry again. So you notice I'm at $38,210.04, and that matches my bank code balance. So I know from my very start I'm in good shape because these two should match, okay? In theory, they should match. So that's one of the first things that I look at when you are out of balance. So what happens if they don't? Well, you'll hear me say this all the time. Go back to those modules. Run those daily transaction registers. A lot of times that doesn't happen. For whatever reason, somebody forgot to click on the daily transaction register, which will update our GL account balance here. So you want to make really, really careful sure that you don't have any unposted daily transaction registers. The other thing that you want to look at is, did somebody, if I go through my transactions, did somebody do a general journal entry? Okay, remember we just talked about that a few seconds ago. Did someone do a general journal entry? Because that won't affect my bank rec unless I go in and I manually put that entry into my bank rec. So you know, you got to kind of look at those things, make sure that you're in balance to start with. So let's go back and you know, we talked about how do things feed our bank rec, and I talked about the transaction journal entry. So let's go ahead and click on transaction journal. Now, it can and it will integrate with bank rec, but you have to format it to do so. So what am I saying about formatting? Well, what you do is you use one of your source journal codes. Sometimes people make up their own. I'm going to use a W1 for a wire transfer, and this is a source journal code that I had set up. Once I click on my little pound sign here, I have a format button over here. Now, I only have to do this one time. I'm going to format this source journal to integrate with my bank rec, okay? So the first thing it's going to ask here is, what is my offset account number? And this is the account number for the bank code that I want it to affect. And I am going to make it a credit. So I want these things reducing what is in my cash account. Now, this very first transaction type, document references, document references do not affect bank rec. Notice that these are grayed out here. I cannot put a bank code in here. So what are my other choices? Well, I have adjustments, bank transfers, checks, and deposits. Now, once again, I'm going to grab onto that Wayback Machine. Years and years ago, a lot of accounting firms used this software, and a lot of people who didn't have accounts receivable or accounts payable, and they put their checks and deposits in through here as journal entries. So that's, you know, I think I'm going to say the origin of where those came from, but they can be used on a daily basis. But a lot of times we have bank transfers. So I am pushing money between banks. So what this will do with a bank transfer, and I know this happens to a lot of us, is I'm transferring out of this bank code and it's going into this bank code, but I do it as a transaction entry, or maybe I do it as a cash receipt or a check or whatever, and it only affects one bank code. Well, if you do transaction journal entry and you do it as a bank transfer, I can actually have the transaction hit both bank codes. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to choose my bank code H, and I'm going to be transferring money to my Bank of America savings account. Okay, so now once I click OK, this format stays in the system, and I can use it each and every time that I go, you know, to do a wire transfer. Okay. So here I'm going to put a journal comment on here, and I'm going to say record bank transfer to, you know, savings. Okay, and so down here I can put in a transfer number. I'm just going to put in the date because I don't, you know, I'm going to make that number up today, and we're going to go to the lines, and it's saying, okay, I'm going to affect bank code C. So once again, I'm going to use, you know, I'm going to make up a document reference number, use that today's date. If I want to make my columns a little bigger, I'm just going to scoot that out a little bit, and it shows you my offset account and how much I'm going to transfer. I'm going to transfer $10,000, and I'm going to put a comment in here that just says transfer funds, okay? And now I'm going to click on accept. So when I run my register, okay, when I run the register, it's going to show me that I have a, here's my bank code H, and here is my bank code C, and it's going to transfer those funds between those bank codes. So I'm going to go ahead and update that journal. Now, if I go back into my bank rec module, I'm going to go into Reconcile a Bank, and I'm going to pull up my bank code H. It is going to come across, I'm going to go to my Deposit and Adjustment tab, and it's going to come across as a withdrawal of $10,000. Okay, let's stretch this out a little bit so we can see what's all over there. And notice it has my journal comment. Now, if I look at my bank code C, once again, it's going to come in to the bank code C as a deposit. So that's how I can transfer funds between two different bank accounts and have it affect my bank rec module so that they both get hit with that transfer. Okay? Now, with that, let's talk about how we can feed other type of transactions into the bank rec. One thing that happens to us all the time are miscellaneous payments, okay? Maybe we have our payroll taxes, for instance. So how can I get my payroll taxes in? It's going to affect multiple GL account numbers. And one of the methods that I like to use is creating a manual check for it. So I'm going to go to Accounts Payable, and I'm going to go into Manual Check and Payment Entry. Once again, I'm going to check to see that my bank code is correct. It's bank code H. And I'm going to do it as a check, and I'm going to physically enter the check number. So I like to use a different check number than a live check number. Maybe you want to use a live check number. That's up to you. But I'm going to put a 9 in front of my check number, and I'm going to put, basically kind of use the date, 5/15 in 2020. That's my payment date for my payroll taxes. So I'm going to put in my date here, and then the amount that I paid. Now, here's a trick. Some of us know about, some of us don't. We have a miscellaneous vendor in Accounts Payable called NOF, or Not On File Vendor. I can use this vendor anytime, and I just type in who the payee name was on that vendor. And then I'm going to put here on my comment that this was for payroll taxes. Okay? And then I'm going to go to my Lines tab. Now, since I don't have an invoice for this, I want to post it directly against a GL account number, and that's what this little hash symbol was. And guess what? We had the hash symbol first before all this Twitter stuff goes. We're going to click on the little hash symbol here, and it's going to open up our GL distribution page. So here is where I'm going to enter the account numbers that I want to post it to and the amounts. So I'm going to enter my taxes. Oh, I'm going to show you another little trick while we're in here. Notice that we have multiple grids. And a lot of times when I have 2 grids, if there's some information I want on the second grid, I want to pull it up to the top grid. So all I'm going to do is grab that field. I'm going to left click and pull it right up there. Now for me, I like to have my GL description on the same line because if I key in the wrong GL account number, if I'm not seeing the description, I may not notice it. That's a permanent change for yourself. So if you grab anything from the secondary grid and pull it up, it stays up there on that top grid. So here I can enter a manual check and go ahead and accept it. And once again, I'm going to print my register. Now keep in mind, I can click the little printer button down here, or I can come out to the manual check and payment register and click it there. It really does the exact same process. So I'm going to go ahead and click on print. I do have paperless turned on. We saw that earlier when the PDF came up on my screen. So let's see. Here's our PDF. Here's my check number. Here's my vendor and the amount that I'm paying. I'm going to go ahead and go out of here and say yes. Now, I'm going to always follow through, and let's do that daily transaction register so it posts over to my general ledger. Otherwise, right, those balances are going to be off, and then we're going to scratch our head trying to figure out why we're not in balance. So now let's go back over to Reconcile Bank, take a look at our bank code H, and here that check shows up right here down at the bottom because I started it with a 9, and there it is, and it shows me that it was to the IRS, and I'm going to pull this in a little bit, and it was for my payroll taxes. So AP obviously can flow through to your bank rec with those miscellaneous transactions. Sometimes it's kind of hard to figure out how do I get all these miscellaneous transactions in there, and this is a good way of doing it. We also can have wire transfers. I mean, a lot of us are paying by wire transfer these days. Now, for those of you that don't realize it, actually I'm going to back out of here one second. For those of you who don't realize it, if you click on your setup and you go to Accounts Payable Options, If you click on this Enable Wire Transfers, you will have that in your manual check entry. You will be able to put these wire transfers in. Now, these are not necessarily electronic payments. These are the ones that you're calling the bank and saying, I need to wire this to blah, 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 blah. Okay, so that's what you're doing. We can also handle electronic payments, which is actually a whole nother Tech Tuesday if we want to do that. So we're going to go into manual check. And I'm going to click my down arrow, and now I'm going to do a wire transfer. Now, in our wire transfer, we're just going to come in here. We're going to transfer $1,000, and I can choose a vendor. So let's choose our Stevens Supply. And when I did my wire transfer, it gave me a wire transfer number, so I want to put that in there. Now I'm going to come here to the lines. Once again, I'm going to use the GL button, but if you were paying an invoice that was on file, you would want to probably click that Select Invoice button and select the invoice that you're wanting to pay. You can also add the invoice on the fly. So if the invoice is not currently in the system and I entered an invoice number in the invoice number field, the system is going to prompt and say, is this a new invoice? And I can say yes, and it will create the invoice and pay it at the same time. Today for us, we're going to go ahead and take it to the GL account number. It is paying a freight bill, so I want it to go straight to my freight expense, and I'm going to click on Accept. And notice it does create an invoice number. And what it does is it puts the CK in front of it, and then my check number from up here in the body. Okay? So once again, I'm going to accept this. And I'm going to print my register, and we're going to update. Watch your posting dates. Remember to try to keep your posting date into the correct period. So here's my manual check register, and I'm going to say yes, that I want to post that. And once again, we're going to do our daily transaction register. And there's my daily transaction register, and yes. Now I'm going to go and take a quick look at my bank again, and you'll notice here's my wire transfer right here. Okay? And that should show up on my bank statement. So let's go ahead and back out of there. So now we've put in some of our payroll tax payments. We've done a wire transfer. The next thing that I want to do is I want to do a check reversal. Now, I need you to keep this in mind. If you are reversing a check in the same month that you wrote it, everything's fine and dandy. If you're reversing a check in a future month, so I wrote this check back in May, and I'm going to reverse it in June. There's a little trick that I have that helps when you do your bank reconciliation. So I'm going to change this to the accounts payable module. Oops, that's accounts receivable. Let's cancel out of there. Let's do that again. And you'll notice that my date is 5/31, but we're going to pretend that it is June 20th. And I haven't reconciled my bank yet for the previous month. So we're pretending that it's June 20th, and I have to do a check reversal. Okay? So where do we do those? Manual check and payment entry. And we come in here, and then we put in the check number that we want to reverse. The first prompt that comes up says, is this a check reversal? And our answer is yes. Okay. Do I want to recall paid invoices? Now, keep this in mind. If I want to pay those invoices on a different check, the answer is yes. If I don't want to pay those invoices on a different check and I just kind of want to write them off and get them out of the system, the answer is no. Okay, that's a very important thing. If I'm going to pay them on another check, or if I need to make sure that they're open and maybe I need to adjust them up or down, then my answer is yes. If I want to get them off my system, the answer is no. I'm going to go ahead and say yes. Okay? So it will pull the check date of 5/5, which is the original date that I wrote this check. But I'm reversing it in June. So what I do is I change it to the date that I am reversing and posting it. Okay? That's just a little Sue trick, and I'll show you why. It'll make sense in a minute. So I always change this date to the date that I'm doing the reversal and the posting. So I'm going to go ahead and accept this and click on my little printer here. And here's my posting date of June 7th, because we're in that future month. Or we're pretending to be in that future month. And here's my reversal. It shows me it's reversed. It's going to put that invoice back out there. And let's post this register all the way through. And here we go with the daily transaction register. Now, let's go to bank rec real quick. This is where it gets kind of interesting. So if I come in here, and I'm going to pull up that bank code H, now look. All right, here's my original check that was done on 5/5, and here's my reversal, and it shows me, oh, 6/7. So if I'm doing May's bank rec, and I'm coming across here, if this said 5/5, I wouldn't know that it actually was still open at the end of May, because the reversal hit the general ledger on June 7th. Okay, does that make sense? The reversal hits the general ledger on June 7th. So if I left this at 5/5 and I'm just going click, click, oh, look, there's a reversal, click, click, and I clear it, I'm not going to be in balance when I'm done doing my bank rec. So that's something to keep in mind. It's a little trick that I picked up years ago, but it's kind of an interesting way of looking at it and catching yourself so you don't make a mistake. Okay, so we talked about how to add things like your wire transfers and your taxes and whatever. But what if you have like bank fees and check charges or whatever, NSF fees, whatever comes across? How can I add those and do two steps at once? I mean, do I have to do a transaction journal entry this, or do I have to make up a fake, AP check? Well, no. There was a feature that it was added to the bank reconciliation module several years ago, where now we have a button down here that says Add Check. So I can actually add some of this information directly into the bank rec module and have it post over to the general ledger, which is actually really cool. So if you click on Add Check, I can come in here and I can put a check number in. And what I can do is, put in the correct check date. Well, I'm going to say that this hit my bank on the 17th. And I'm going to put a reference number in here, postage. I mean, maybe it was an automatic thing that came out of my system. But I'm going to go ahead and put this in, and the amount was $100. And I want to set this select for GL posting. So I know that when I put this entry in, I want it to post over to the general ledger. So I don't just put it in here and then I have to turn around and do a journal entry for it. Because remember, I don't really like journal entries to bank rec if we don't have to. But I've got my little check mark in here, and if I click OK, it adds it down here. And now what I can do is I can click on this bank rec transaction register. So if I click on that and I say, yes, I want to save changes, and I can tell it what date that I wanted to post, and maybe I wanted to change it to the 17th, but since it's in the month of May, I'm fine with the 31st. I'm going to go ahead and print that. And here is my first, bank rec register. And then the next one that I get, once again, I'm going to update this, is my daily transaction register. So now it's going to take this transaction and it's going to post it over to the general ledger for me, which is totally cool. I've just done 2 transactions in one swipe. Okay, so I'm going to update that. Now, what else can I add? What else can I do? Let's go back into Reconcile Bank, and I'm going to go to my Deposit and Adjustment tab, because maybe I need to add some bank fees. So here I have a Add Deposit and Adjustment button. I can click on that, and I can put in the date that I want it to post to. So I'm going to choose, I'm not going to choose that date because that's going to mess me up. So let's go into 2020, and I'm going to choose, let's do that again. So let's do May 31st. And I'm going to do entry number 3. Now, the reason why I'm doing entry number 3 is because if I'm looking out here on the 31st, I already have 2 entries. So I know this one is entry number 1, this one's entry number 2, so this one's going to be entry number 3. And I have choices here. I have adjustment, bank charge, deposit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the system knows if it's adjustment, it knows it's a negative. Bank charge, it knows it's a negative. Deposit, it knows it's a positive. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to do a bank charge here, and I'm going to do $35. Remember, it knows it's negative, so I'm not going to put in a negative sign. And we're going to click on our Select for GL Posting, and I'm going to put in the GL account number that I want that to post to. And once again, I'm going to click OK. Now, if I had multiples I wanted to add, I just keep adding them, adding them, adding them. And then once again, I click on my BR Trans Register, and I say, yes, I want to save changes, and I get my register to post. Now, in the olden days, what we used to have to do, or what people did with this, is they did journal entries for these transactions, and then they turned around and went into BankRec and manually entered them. Because entries that you put into BankRec, it affects that bank code maintenance also, the dollar amount in there. So you want to keep, that's why we added this feature to the BankRec module so that we could keep everything flowing together and make it easier for you so you could take a 2-step process and turn it into a 1-step process. So this is going to put my bank fees in there. So now I have everything posted over. And now, if I've done everything right, we're going to reconcile the bank. So how do you, now I've got all my transactions, they've been flowing in for the month, so how exactly do you reconcile the bank? Well, the statement comes in the mail, and you put the bank statement ending balance, okay? And it even tells you right here, statement ending balance. So we're going to put in the bank statement ending balance, and it shows us that we're out of balance. So now I'm going to start clicking off what cleared the bank. Now I know I don't want to click these two because remember this one cleared in June, not in May. We reversed it in June. So this one cleared. And oh, here, I have a whole bunch of these right here that cleared. Now do I want to go click, 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 click? Maybe not. What I can do is I can take my little Select Checks to Clear button, which is this little green check mark over here, and I can actually do a range of checks. So if I have a whole bunch in a row that cleared, I can come in here and I can do from check number to check number. And what it'll do is it'll click them all for me. Sometimes for those of us that have, we have more that cleared than, less that cleared, that might be, clear them all, and then go back and uncheck the ones that didn't clear. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to check these off because these all cleared in my bank. And you'll notice as I'm checking them off, this balance should be changing here. So I'm going to check this one, and my 1,000 did not clear. So now I'm going to go over to my deposits tab. And once I get on here, I know my 25,000 cleared. Once again, here goes my balance. It's going down. And we're going to go down here, and my $35 cleared, and this one cleared, and this one cleared. And yay me, look what I've done. I am out of balance by 0. Yay, little applaud there for me. So now, perfect. This is beautiful. This is exactly what we all want to see every month. Not exactly what we do see every month, but we hope to get it to that 0. If it's not 0, then we go back and we start looking. Did I click something I shouldn't have? Did I click something that actually was open at the end of the month because we reversed it or corrected it or whatever in a future month? Did somebody do a journal entry to my cash account? These all things affect, and once again, I'll go back to that bank code maintenance, look at that balance, and then look at my general ledger balance to make sure that they are in sync. So we're lucky because we had a perfect month. I'm going to go ahead and click on Accept. Now, what I want to do next is for the next month, I want to prep this so I don't continue to carry those transactions. You don't really want to carry those clear transactions out here, because anytime you have to run your reconciliation report, all those transactions will appear, and you'll end up with thousands of transactions out there. So what you really want to do is you want to clear those transactions off the system. So after you get down to your zero balance, this is a very, very important piece. What we're going to do is two things. We need to come in here and we need to pull up your bank code, and then we're going to come over here to your document date field. I want to leave this one open-ended because, you know, maybe I have some really old outstanding stuff out there. So I want to leave that open-ended, and I'm going to come here and I'm going to say May 31st. Okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to print this report, and it is very, very, very important that not only should this report show you that your adjusted bank balance and your calculated book balance is the same and you're out of balance by zero, but what you also want to do, and this is a piece that a lot of us forget to do, is we need to go back to account inquiry, pull up that general ledger. Let's go here to, let's pull this report back up. And now I'm going to pull my ledger up here. And now I am going to compare it to the same month and these two balance. Bank rec for that month and GL for that month should be the same number. And that's a piece that a lot of us forget. We forget, we balance this and go, yay! And then we forget that, oh, does it balance to our general ledger? That's a very vital piece of the equation that we want to make sure that they do balance, okay? So, and they do, they should. If everything is right with the world, it should. So where a lot of us get confused when we try to clear off these transactions, we forget to A, put in a specific bank code here, and B, just put in the ending month, date that you're trying to reconcile. If you do that and you're in balance and we check the general ledger, we high-five ourselves, and then we can answer yes to this question. Do you want to remove cleared documents from 531? And my answer is yes, because when I want to go and do June, I don't want to see all those old cleared transactions. I only want to see the ones that I am dealing with for this specific month. My old outstanding that have not cleared, whether it's deposits or checks or whatever, and none of that old stuff. If you do need to go back and you need to see transactions from a certain month, you can go back into accounts receivable, and you can go to your cash receipt history reports. All your deposits are in there. You can go back to your accounts payable reports and look at your check history reports there. And also keep in mind, if you have paperless turned on, and I highly, highly recommend turning paperless on, especially for bank rec, you can do a paperless bank rec report so that if somebody comes to you in 6 months and says, hey, what happened with this check, you can go to that specific bank rec that's in your paperless office product here, and you can see, and I'm not even sure I have any out here, so I actually don't have any out here, but you would be able to see the bank rec report in here and be able to pull it up. So you want to turn paperless on for that. So those are the different ways that you can get transactions in and out of bank rec. If you have any questions on how that works or what we recommend, a lot of it is personal taste as far as putting those miscellaneous transactions in. I kind of like doing the manual check. Other people, prefer to do a check through transaction entry. It's up to you. A lot depends on how many GL account numbers it needs to be posted to. If it needs to be posted to multiple, I like doing it as a manual check. But anyway, you've got the different ways that you can work with the bank rec module now. If you want to try it out, if you've got old history out there, we got to purge out that old history and get you a good starting point. But it really is a really nice product for you to be able to use for your bank recs that's built into your system. There are other features in the bank rec module that I'm not going to cover today, but there is a positive pay export in the bank rec module. And that is something that you can provide to your bank to let them know what checks have cleared, or what checks that, that they are allowed to clear to help prevent fraud. And there is also an auto check reconciliation where you can, if the bank will provide it to you, you can actually import transactions from the bank that will automatically clear the checks that match the file that was brought in. So there's a couple extra features to the bank rec module that, like I said, we didn't cover today, but I got the main part of it in here for you. If you have any questions, definitely give us a call. Otherwise, please forward us any new topics that you would like to do for our Tech Tuesdays. We will be having one, as Suzanne had promised, we will be having one on the 2015 version coming up very soon. We have actually started installing it at clients. There are a lot of nice, nifty new features in it, and we'll be showing that to you very soon. Have a great day. Hope you enjoyed the Tech Tuesday today, and happy bank wrecking. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.